program in 2 minutes. Thank you, everyone. So we can now start. Good afternoon, Southeast Asia, and good morning and good evening to people from different time zones joining us in today's webinar. For those who are not able to join via Zoom, you can still catch the conversation via our live stream, Facebook live streaming. So kindly visit and follow the Facebook accounts of the International Accountability Project, the Coalition for Human Rights and Development, the Global Alliance on Incinerator Alternatives, Asia Pacific, and the Youth Advocates for Climate Action Philippines to watch us live. I am Carlo from the International Accountability Project, and I'll be your facilitator in today's webinar entitled Tracking Energy Finance in Southeast Asia, a conversation on finance trends and community-led responses. This event is jointly organized by the International Accountability Project, or IAP, the Coalition for Human Rights in Development, CHRD, the Global Alliance on Incinerator Alternatives, Asia Pacific, or GAIA, and the Youth Advocates for Climate Action Philippines, or YACAP. This online session is second of a series, as we had a similar webinar in the Africa region, while another region will organize the same webinar in the next month. For today's discussion, we will have a very packed and exciting lineup of speakers and topics. This conversation will talk about data on energy projects in Southeast Asia, the finance trends, investment patterns, and analysis. We will also learn impacts of these projects on our communities and environment. And lastly, our speakers will share community-led responses or solutions in addressing challenges associated with energy projects. So let's get started. Our first speaker will discuss some data on energy financing in Southeast Asia and the data that come from the Energy Finance Tracker. Our first speaker is an environmental and social activist originally from Italy. He has a background in international law and is now working as a researcher at the International Accountability Project. He plays an important role in setting up the Energy Finance Tracker and energy data analysis. He is passionate about human rights and social justice, contributing to the work of civil society organizations in North Macedonia, Georgia, and Nepal. Let us all welcome my colleague, Alessandro Ramazzotti. Take it away, Ale.
Thank you, Carlo, and welcome everyone. Nice to see you here. Today, I hope the discussion will be engaging and nice. So, yeah, as Carlo said, we developed this tool called the Energy Finance Tracker, and today we'll talk about the Southeast Asia investments. So why we developed this tool? Because as you all probably know, the energy sector is receiving increased amount of attention from, well, everyone in the world, including MDBs, which are always up to date with the current trends. And sorry, good. And yeah, we noticed that due to the increased investments in the so-called just transition, MDBs were financing more and more, we're targeting more and more the energy sector. However, yeah, sustainable and green doesn't always mean just. So having a tool that shows what the trends are in the sector, who the actors are, and yeah, in general, what is happening in the sector, it's important for us. And Tara, can you go on to the next slide? Thank you. So yeah, we developed this tool to raise awareness, of course, about the trends, and also empower civil society organizations worldwide to develop their advocacy strategies and target specific actors, which can be MDBs themselves, or sorry, by MDBs I mean multilateral development banks, for those who are not familiar with the sector, and as well as the private sector and public sector. So yeah, we also want, of course, to trigger action and create a support better transition as much just as possible. Can you move to the next slide? Thank you. So yeah, as you can see here, this is a representation of the Energy Finance Tracker. Between the beginning of 2022 and the end of March 2024, we tracked 1,064 projects financed by MDBs, 130 of which were just from the first quarter of 2024. And in the tracker, which is an online interactive tool that you can all access, it's public, you can check investments by banks, by region or country of your interest. And there are 21 subsectors, solar, wind, oil and gas, but also less known, such as carbon capture, that we recently added, as well as hydrogen and carbon credit markets. You can see the risk category, whether the loans, the investments are intermediated or direct. So yeah, we tracked 14 development banks, the early warning system, the tool that IAP, the database that IAP uses, tracked 16 development banks, but 2 of them apparently did not invest much in the energy sector. So yeah, we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. Here you can see a quick overview of what's happening in the East Asian Pacific region. There are 93 projects, which is about 9% of the global total, and that equals an amount of 7.3 billion, which might be more or less. Of course, we tried our best to represent data in a reliable and consistent way, but yeah. This amount is about 5%, slightly less than 5% of the global total. And as you can see in the list with countries which received most investments, those are the countries which are notoriously known for having rich amount of energy resources, such as coal and minerals and solar and wind. Yes, and in the bottom part of the slide, you can see the countries which receive the least amount of investments, and these are cumulative amounts. So, 140 millions between South Korea and Vanuatu, and so on. The main multilateral development banks that are active in the region are, well, expectedly the Asian development banks, such as the ADB and the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, but also the ever-present World Bank Group. And we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So in this, this is a kind of example of how you can use the energy finance tracker. So as you can see in the slide, the public sector received most investments in the Southeast and East Asian Pacific region, which amounts to 4.2 billion, and the private sector received 3.1 billion. This is a counter trend in general in the world. Private sector receives most investments, but in the region, given that the ADB and the World Bank are the most active, they mostly target, as you may know, the public sector. So that explains this data. And as you can see, indeed, one of the main subsectors being targeted is the legal regulatory one. That means MDBs supporting governments to implement or design policies in the energy sector. And as you can see, a large amount also went to fund the sector that we labeled as fund equity and SMEs, small and medium enterprises. And these are commercial banks or funds, and sometimes their investments are not as transparent. They try to muddy the waters or the oils, as we will see in the next slide. Thank you. Indeed, out of the 5 projects that we tracked in the energy finance tracker, in the oil and gas sector, 3 involve financial intermediaries, which again can be commercial banks or funds. And again, this could be more. We tracked 5 projects and 3 involve financial intermediaries, which you can see on the right in Cambodia and Vietnam, and 1 global fund. In other sectors as well, apart from the oil and gas sector, we find a big involvement of financial intermediaries, and just separate from financial intermediaries, I would like to say that the waste to energy subsector received 2/3 of all at the global level projects in the waste to energy sector are concentrated in South Asia and East Asian Pacific. So it seems to be a hub where investments are taking place. And so the involvement of these financial intermediaries, as you probably know, some of you may know, leads to a lack of transparency and less benefits for local communities, and also a higher risk of greenwashing. And yes, so that's something that should be controlled. Keep an eye on that. We can move to the next slide. Thank you. The public sector is also not immune from problems. Indeed, as I was saying before, multilateral development banks support governments in shaping policies, designing and implementing policies in the energy sector, and as they use these this way of supporting, which is called technical cooperation or technical assistance. And as you can see in the screenshot in the slide, these, although they are lesser amount and not direct investment in infrastructure, they still support the continuation of fossil fuels and other harmful energy sources such as coal. And they provide a legal background to investments that MDBs then make in the private sector. We can go on. Now, the technical cooperation, of course, is a problem, but the impacts of infrastructure are still there in East Asia and Pacific. And as you can see here, in the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank financed a large amount of projects which are categorized as risk category A, which is the highest. And 5 of these are large-scale wind power plants, 2 of which are in Vietnam. And as local news reported, these large infrastructure created already adverse impacts on local communities and biodiversity, and it was also faulty, so not working because of quality and capacity constraints. We, this infrastructure is large scale, which is a problem worldwide. And personally, I believe that small scale and distributed infrastructure could be a solution. And the problem is that multilateral development banks are still financing these alternative solutions in a little amount. So the adverse impacts that you see here that are happening in Vietnam at the moment could be replicated in other countries as well. We can go on to the next slide. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, that's it. For me, if you have any questions or ideas, please share, and we're always happy to hear from you. If you know anything about what's happening in your context, in your region, just feel free to reach out. And I leave now the floor to Carlo and to the next wonderful speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ale. You can visit the energy tracker database through the link that I will provide or share in the chat box. Through this link, you can navigate the tracker and see how it actually works. Also sending the copy of the report that we published in relation to the energy finance report globally. So sending you both the link so you can check it yourself. Okay. Now we move to our second speaker. Our second speaker is the senior researcher on climate policy and finance at Senik Center Asia, a research-driven organization working on clean and equitable energy transition. His research interests include energy policy, climate finance, adaptation, and mitigation. He is based in Jakarta and holds a master's degree in sociology from the University of Indonesia. May we call on Andri Prasetiyo. Over to you, Andri.
Sorry, I was in mute. Hello, everyone. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. And yeah, glad to be here, and congrats for International Accountability Project for the launch of Energy Finance Tracker. This is massive work and surely will be useful for some of us in terms of our campaign and advocacy ahead. So before I start to present my slide, I would like to introduce myself. Yeah, as mentioned earlier, you can call me Andri. I'm from Senik Center or Asia, based in Jakarta. I would like to present the role of MDBs in terms of just energy transition opportunities and critical notes from Southeast Asia. And yeah, this is the state of play in terms of like main source electricity, just to give the overview how our region, especially not just in Southeast Asia, but in Asia in general, it still rely on a coal, and some of them heavily rely on a gas. And the most difficult one is, of course, some of us is also not just fossil fuel importing country, but also fossil fuel producing countries. Just to give the sense, like the just energy transition, it's much more complicated than what I expected. It doesn't mean like it's not possible, but it means like we need the extra effort, and of course like more mobilizing in terms of the finance. And yeah, this is also clean electricity ranking, coal ranking, and carbon intensity. We can see that some of the Southeast Asia country has carbon intensity ranking, Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, and really high in terms of like electricity. They still rely on fossil fuel. And then the coal ranking also, like Indonesia, Philippines, and some of the other uh, Southeast Asia countries also still rely on coal as their power sector's main source of energy. And the clean electricity ranking, yeah, we can see like Vietnam also hold like clean electricity ranking based on the 2021 data. But the problem is like Vietnam is also one of the latest country that to be the LNG importer in the region, following in the Philippines. So this is much more complicated in terms of like how we define and how we can push or how we can pursue and just energy transition in this region. And the other one is, this is the map about how crowded Southeast Asia with a lot of coal power plant, and Southeast Asia is critical to the clean energy transitions effort because it also hold prominent in terms of reducing global emission at the moment. And we can see in the past few years, Southeast Asia is massively adding more and more coal power plant, and coal power plant in Southeast Asia are relatively young with an average age less than 12 years. It's just mid years of operation of coal power plant, which is normally 25 until 40 years. And of course, this is posed a challenge in the coal phase out and coal retirement, as newer power plant is also still being built. And the other problem is, of course, not many countries in Southeast Asia and in Asia in general set their net zero emission target. We can see that there is still missing net zero target in Southeast Asia and Asia. And then the other problem is, of course, some of countries still having a FAGU policy in terms of coal moratorium, and it's completely unclear what is the coal moratorium. Are they gonna be strictly imposed right after the commitment, or they still waiting for more years, or even like it's just for the on-grid, not applying for the off-grid like captive power plant? And yeah, Southeast Asia also play a critical role in clean energy supply chain, which is at the moment still heavily powered by coal power plant. We can discuss it later. And yeah, this is the trends in Southeast Asia. Financing energy project, it's been mentioned a lot earlier in the first presentations, but I would like to highlight the MDBs like World Bank and ADB are key entity in the development finance in the region in ASEAN, whether it's clean or fossil fuel during the 2015 until 2021. World Bank, for example, in the fourth position, ADB in third position with 30.6 billion, and ADB 37 billion. The majority of finance in energy project in Southeast Asia still supported by China and also South Korea following on the second position. So who is the main recipients of financing energy project from the MDBs? Because yeah, most likely going to focus on the MDBs. So Indonesia and Vietnam and Thailand are the countries that have received the largest financial allocations from the MDBs in the past few years. And Indonesia leads with 2.7 billion, and then Vietnam, and then Thailand on the third positions. While in Asia, World Bank Group and ADB also still provided notable funding for fossil gas over the past decade, even though they have committed to stop building a coal power plant, but they still supporting another fossil fuel source of energy, which is gas. And between 2013 and 2021, huge amount of money. It's almost this like 12, almost 13 billion for gas project, and ADB nearly 5.1 billion. It's, yeah, it's really concerning. And this is also the next trend of in terms of like MDB's funding in the region. MDB's funding for fossil fuels is on the decline trend, but it's still not enough. Why it's still not enough? Basically, like World Bank and ADB couple of times mentioned that the banks, the public finance need extra money or like need more top up in terms of like additional capacity to support the energy transition. But they cannot do that. But the problem is like the other strategy that the World Bank can push or even like ADB can push is definitely to move or to shift one of specific finance in their pocket, for example, like supporting the gas towards the renewable energy transition, because basically that's the easiest ways other than like it might be not enough, but it's not something like we can substitutioning to each other, but it's rather that it's complementing to each other. They have to stop a loophole for funding fossil fuel in other sectors like gas, but also they need to double or triple their capacity for the energy transition finance. But yes, fossil fuel is dwindling. We can see there is a World Bank, ADB, AIP, a BRD and stuff, but the problem is not enough. And for instance, ADB allocate 161 million for fossil fuel related project, and yeah, for renewable energy, 791 million for renewable energy. And okay, this is what MDBs can definitely play in terms of like the pushing or accelerating the energy transitions. They can work as a finance bank, providing loan, providing grant, and but also they can play important roles as knowledge bank. They can make and provide an advisory service for country specific, because basically like World Bank and ADB sometimes provide a technical assistance in form of loan because before specific project following up their before like they start a project, they provide a technical assistance. It's basically like preparing the institutional capacity or even like regulatory capacity, regulatory readiness. And our finding, this is our research with recourse, and Senik Center found that World Bank has allocated like almost 200 million in technical assistance for the gas related sectors. This is globally, and most of them is still in Asia, mostly came into effect in 2016. And while the ADB has committed like nearly 11 million for the gas related sector. What does it mean? Despite it's really small comparing to the loan or even like the grants, for example, technical assistance should not be overlooked, because sometimes it can influence the country specific to keep rely on fossil gas and has a disproportionate impact country policy and strategic directions. So it's basically like creating the path for further finance or even like further project both on the public or private finance, which is still rely on fossil fuel. And this is coal. We expect a coal leapfrogging the gas toward the renewable energy, but there is instead of we get the progress, but at the moment we get the progress, which is like MDB still clinging to the gas as source as a transition fuel. And yeah, I think I would mention that in terms of the energy transition as equitable transition, I would say like simply adding clean or renewable energy is not enough. We know that some of like most of us, for example, like fighting over the big dam or like large solar power or large wind project, but it means like renewable energy, it's not the end, but it's just simply as a mean. So simply adding clean and renewable energy is not enough. Our energy transition needs to be transformative and implemented in a clean and clear principle. That's why like guarding or monitoring the safeguard review is really important. Otherwise, we are just replacing the fossil fuel problem with the clean energy without really addressing the fundamental problem, which is definitely gonna repeating the same problem with the fossil fuel led development. And what is the just energy transition at the moment? There are some of energy transition initiative launched by the MDBs, for example, like there is energy transition mechanism that launched by the ADB targeting Indonesia, Philippines, and Pakistan is currently is still stuck in the discussions and potential extension with the Vietnam and Kazakhstan. They target like ETM to help the countries Pacific to retire coal power plant. But the problem, they also add one problematic clause, which is like ETM and also open up for repurposing or refurbishing the existing coal power plant. And then the other one is, of course, like there is a project from Green Climate Fund. It's like a climate investment fund, which is accelerate coal transition. This is wanted to accelerate coal power transition, and also they want to have a pilot project of the mining coal mining closure in Indonesia, India, and Philippines, and JETP also the most I would say like this is everyone is like talk about the JETP, but this is also a lot of concerns goes to the JETP. But there is a Indonesia, Vietnam, for example, like in Asia, and then yeah, it's not enough because Vietnam and Indonesia JETP is actually just providing really crumbs and really little money for the country recipients, because for example like Indonesia just provide JETP is only commit for 20 billion, and then Indonesian's government said like in the total we need like it's just for power generations they said like we need 225 billion, which is only like 11 it's just like less than 10%, and most of the funding is actually in form of loan. It's not a grant, or it's like yeah they said like oh this is market loan and also concessional loan. But I would say like any kind of deals that should cannot be called like just energy transition partnership if it's still dominated by the loan, because it's just actually like business as usual. And Vietnam JETP is also really concerning. It's just that at the moment, like Vietnam say like by 2030, they need 134 billion, but JETP is only channeling 15 billions or just 11%. And most of them also in a form of loan instead of like significant portion of the grant. And this is, I think this is my last point about the MDBs and how they can definitely play a key and important roles in financing cleaner future in Asia. Major MDBs, not just a World Bank ADB, as I mentioned, the AIIB also still supporting the gas. And considering the regional and subsectoral needs, they always said like, oh, this is upon the request by the regional or country specific. And ADB rules article, but still set condition for gas project in their energy policy. And the ASEAN Development Bank is, I mean, like, yeah, ADB have a coal commitment, right? It's to stop coal project, but they also launched a coal project retirement, coal power plant retirement. But at the same time, they're still supporting the gas, which is many countries still consider as like a transition fuel. I mean, like, what's the point? In general, that would be relatively low impact to cut the decarbonization, because basically you can just simply replacing the fossil fuel with so-called relatively green, because but yeah, gas is also methane, one of the significant pollutants for the climate change. And the bank will continue to consider financing gas project, and not just for power generations, pipelines and power plants. And World Bank, for example, will stop financing coal, oil and gas exploration and extraction from 2019, but still supporting the gas through the other way. Like as I mentioned earlier, on the left graph, World Bank saying like they're not supporting oil and gas in the upstream level, but some of their technical assistance still goes for extractions, extraction and governance, and which is definitely, it's kind of like really counterproductive. And IFC is not extending their green equity approach, just only applied for coal, but not ruled out to the gas. It also link up with the international accountability project tracker, which is also involve the private sectors, and the IIB will not support natural gas upstream exploration and productions, but it takes selective approach and prioritize gas for investment. We have seen clear evidence that the gas, for example, like our region in South Asia, for example, and in Pakistan and Bangladesh, they both really expensive gas from the spot market, because basically they wanted to secure the gas supply for the domestic demand. And the problem is, like, everyone is complaining that the gas is expensive, and then it's really volatile, and somehow it can ruin their capacity, not just for the industry but also for public to rely on affordable electricity. But how good at the moment, MDB is still going to support the gas as part of the transitions period. And at the same time, they wanted to achieve the just energy transition, which is it's really problematic stand at the moment. So I would say that's from me. I mean, like, my point is, like, yeah, clean and renewable energy is important, but it's not enough. We need to be transformative and implemented clean and clear principles. So yeah, just I think that's from me. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Terima kasih, Andri, for giving a very concise discussion, like how critical this conversation on energy transition in the region and some of the investment behaviors moving forward. So before we proceed to the next two speakers, we will have an open forum. So I know maybe some of you would have some questions to our first two speakers. So we'll have this open forum. You may ask your questions addressed to Ale and Andri. And please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. And please introduce yourself and your name and organization before delivering your question. You can also type in your questions in the chat box. Yeah, maybe we can have like 3 questions for this section. Yeah. Is there any question for Ale and Andre? Oh, wait, I have one, I think, here. Message. Okay. So for Andre, structurally, what should be done to achieve a genuine energy transition, taking into account human and environmental rights of communities?
Yes, thanks, Carlo. I mean, like, there are a couple of, like, really important aspects need to be assured in terms of, like, just energy transition. The first one is not just it should be favorable financing, and it's grant-based financing, and then of course, like, transparent, meaningful participation and better governance. I mean, like, we have seen, like, a fossil-led development is always not with transparent, meaningful participations, but also we don't want those kind of development model repeating when we are planning, or even like we are implementing the renewable energy project. And then the other one is avoid supporting all fossil fuel and false solutions, which is just focus on renewable energy, because basically we have to treat the public finance as really limited at the moment, and we should use it really wisely, and then prioritize transformative and community-led renewable energy solutions. I mean, we have seen as well, fossil fuel project is most of fossil fuel project is like centralized, and us as community is just receiving as playing roles as the consumer, and then it's really centralistic. We got the, but I mean, for the ownership and also in terms of, like, uh co-productions, I mean, like, civil society organization and also community could push transformative and community-led renewable energy solution. It's not just about, like, large-scale project, like large-scale solar power, or even large-scale wind project, or even large-scale, like, hydropower. And then lastly is, I would say, if we wanted to define just energy transition, we need to assure, like, human and civil rights must be assured. We know some of our college in Vietnam facing the shrinking civic space, and then the government, like, threatening them and then put them in jail because of, like, they are criticizing and they are vocal for the energy transition in their own country. And most likely this kind of model would also be will happen in the other countries. So yeah, I think what's the point of just energy transition if the human and civil rights is not assured? So I would say that's from me.
Thank you, Andri. We have some questions in the chat box for both of the speakers. From Medea, I um I would like to ask about the Chinese investments in fossil fuels. Is there any update on that for Andri and Ale? Whoever goes first. Ale,
Yeah,
okay, go
I
ahead.
can try. I just answered in the chat, and I wanted to say that in the energy finance tracker, we did not track specific Chinese government's investments because we mostly focus on multilateral development banks. So there is data about the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and the New Development Bank, which are Chinese-led MDBs. And yeah, then we have a list of private companies involved in the projects that we tracked. And there are also, of course, Chinese companies involved. For instance, in the project that I was in the wind power plants that I presented about in Vietnam, it was they were built by Chinese companies because they were projects financed by the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank. And the problem with Chinese companies is that not only in the oil and gas sector, but also in the renewables, in renewable energy infrastructure, they mostly hire Chinese workers, and that brings less benefits to local communities as well. But about oil and gas sectors investments, we do not have specific data. Thank you for asking me that.
Yeah, thank you, Ale. Andri, do you have any answer in relation to Chinese investments in fossil
Yeah,
fuel?
I think this is really interesting. I mean, like tracking China's investment might be relatively tricky, but I think there are some of the database and from Pasteur University, there are some of like Chinese investment tracker and stuff. So maybe I could reach out separately to media to talk about this.
Thank you. I guess the two speakers have answered the question. So we now move to the next one. I think this is for Ale. Is there a way to use the tracker to filter projects affecting indigenous peoples? From Richard Gadit.
No, unfortunately not. But of course, we welcome any inputs that you may have. If you notice any project that is specifically related to impacts on indigenous peoples, please reach out and let us know, and we'll make sure to track it in the early warning system. That is the database IAP uses, but not directly in the energy sector.
Thank you. Thank you, Ale. Yeah, from Jessica, for Andri, MDBs shouldn't be involved in TAs because they open the way for fossil fuels. Do you think there is scope to influence the MDBs to do better TAs? This is technical assistance, you know. It is easier to influence MDBs than other actors.
Yeah, thanks, Carlos. So yeah, I mean like I'm not saying like MDBs should definitely stop being providing technical assistance, but I would say like at the moment, if MDBs, Jessica, if MDBs like World Bank and ADB have make a commitment to stop supporting the oil and gas in upstream level, they should make an alignment in terms of like technical assistance. So they have keys the support for financing and upstream level, but at the same time they still provide the technical assistance towards the fossil fuel that also link to the extraction, which is also some of like supporting through the backdoor for the fossil fuel project through the backdoor. So I would say like at the moment, the main call to MDBs is like to expand their exclusion, not just for oil upstream investment or upstream support for oil and gas, but also like downstream project, but also technical assistance. With that, I mean, they can definitely use their money for technical assistance, simply just focus on technical assistance towards renewable energy. We know the MDBs like World Bank, like ADB recently is just supporting the JETP Secretariat in Indonesia through technical assistance. I mean, like this such money that goes for fossil fuel technical assistance could definitely redirect to the renewable energy related projects. So I would say that would be the best way during the transitional period, and also in aligning the full operation of MDBs with the Paris Agreement with the Paris Agreement goals. Carlo, Jessica, yeah, I hope it answered your questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Andri and Ale. I think we can just finish the first round of the Q&A, and then thank you very much, and shout out to those who asked questions. We still have another round of the question and answer later for those who weren't able to forward their questions. So I also hope that you are able to make your simple, cute, creative placards for our group photo later. All right. Moving forward, our third speaker is an environmental justice advocate working closely with civil society and communities in fighting false solutions to waste and climate change. Prior to joining Gaia Asia Pacific as its climate and anti-incineration campaigner, he was an active volunteer in youth-led programs for sustainable development and an urban planner by profession. Let us all welcome Brex Arevallo from the Global Alliance on Incinerator Alternatives Asia Pacific. Brex.
Thanks, Carlo. And hello, everyone. Let me just share the screen, and I hope this is visible. Where's the slideshow? Is this visible to everyone? I can't really see him. Okay.
Yes.
I saw a nod there. All right, so hello again, I'm Brex Arevallo, climate and anti-incineration campaigner for Gaia Asia Pacific. And today we'll be tackling this topic right here, energy finance in Southeast Asia. We're talking about cleaning up needed from dirty technologies. Just a little backgrounder here on my organization. Gaia is the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives. And we are a network of over 1,000 grassroots groups in different countries across Asia Pacific, Africa, Latin America, Europe, and US and Canada. And we are working together to fight waste incineration and move towards a zero waste world. More on that in a bit. Oh, and just to highlight that in the Asia Pacific region, we are over 120 member organizations. So first, we'll be highlighting the main technology that Gaia is fighting against, and this is called waste to energy incineration, or WTE for short. And basically, this refers to different technologies that burn waste or apply high temperatures, high heat onto waste in order to reduce its volume. You might hear different names for this, like gasification, mass burn, or even pyrolysis. Those two pictures over there are what you would typically see, or what a typical WTE facility looks like. The one on the left is in Singapore, and the one on the right is in Thailand. Now, why is this important? Just an overview for Southeast Asia. There are a lot of waste incineration facilities projected within the next 10 years. You have a whopping 79 in Thailand, 17 in Indonesia, 19 in Malaysia, at least 7 in the Philippines, and at least 16 in Vietnam. This is according to data that we've compiled together, some thanks to the Energy Finance Tracker. Now, earlier, the other two speakers talked a lot about climate finance, energy finance. The previous speaker in particular talked a little bit about cleaning, about just transitions and the need for clean energy solutions. And we're focusing here on WTE, highlighting its aspects as a false solution to waste and climate change. There's several reasons. Number one, contrary to narratives that are forwarded by private corporations, some governments, and even many international financial institutions, it's actually a very dirty technology. It emits greenhouse gases, it releases hazardous substances like dioxins, and this is important, produces toxic ash, which eventually has to be landfilled. Now, this point in particular is important because one of the prevailing narratives forwarded for WTE is that it will reduce the need for landfills. But in fact, it produces toxic ash from this waste, which then has to be landfilled anyway. Other things to note over here is that it produces very little energy, particularly in the Southeast Asian context, because most of the waste in this region is organic or wet, meaning it doesn't really produce all that much energy. Another thing is that its ability to produce renewable energy is disputed and is not in line with IPCC guidelines. And pertaining to communities, it actually burns sources of livelihoods from waste pickers and waste workers because you destroy waste. And there's always the justice aspect of it, because these facilities are typically constructed in marginalized communities and are made with no meaningful participation or any real access to information or transparency once these facilities are erected. Now, this is an example in Singapore. This is a landfill on the left, actually. That's an offshore landfill called the Semakau landfill in Singapore. That's where all of their waste, their incinerated waste goes into. It's very huge. The one on the right is a picture of a truck dumping into the landfill. So just to give you a perspective of how huge this thing actually is. This is an example in Malaysia, where even though, again, just to emphasize that even though WTE facilities are promoted as clean, you would actually see several instances, several examples just like this, where you could see the air pollution going into the atmosphere. Now, how is WTE enabled through energy finance? This is through different ways. We've talked about it being branded as a clean energy source and as a climate solution. These are different ways that it gets into the system. Of course, there's direct funding. There's also technical assistance and feasibility studies. Some of these have been brought up earlier by the two previous speakers. The second point over there, very important to note, particularly when you talk about the role of these international financial institutions, these big banks. Now, they have a role outside of, let's say, giving funding to countries, because they also have a heavy say in policy directions and in markets. So for instance, they may be able to shape narratives. They may be able to provide, let's say, policy-based loans. For example, in the Philippines, it has gone to the extent that there are some IFIs, like the ADB, Asian Development Bank, that are providing technical assistance for WTE, even if there is a ban on these technologies in the country. This is a long-standing 20+ year ban. So they're slowly trying to lay the groundwork in creating market demand. Also, it affects the national level. It affects how countries define what is sustainable. For instance, through sustainable finance taxonomies. In wider regional programs, you have the energy transition programs like the Energy Transition Mechanism forwarded by ADB, and also these just energy transition partnerships. But again, the question becomes, is it really just? And finally, I'd like to highlight those last two pieces over there at the bottom, refuse-derived fuel and biomass. These are different ways that, these are different methods of co-incineration, where RDF is basically processed waste, and biomass is intended as feedstock during the transition, during the energy transition. Now, these technologies are also very disputed. They're known to emit GHG, for instance, have environmental impacts. They are also linked heavily with the transboundary movements of waste, where waste gets imported from, let's say, a more developed country towards developing countries. Now, how does all this align with what's on the Energy Finance Tracker report? If you look at the report, I think this links very much with points 3 and 5 that are noted there in the report. Number 3 is MDBs are not clearly disclosing information on the impacts of communities. And in number 5, MDBs, governments and companies continue to invest in false solutions in the name of renewable energy. I'll highlight 2 examples over here from Southeast Asia. The first is in Surakarta in Indonesia, called the Putri Sempo waste-to-energy plant. And the feasibility study for this was funded by the ADB. Now, what are the communities saying? According to a report that was published by Walhi in, I believe that's West Java, Walhi, West Java province, a lot of communities living nearby, as near as 500 meters or even 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers, are complaining about the very sharp and noticeable change in odor ever since this facility was put up. And usually when they try to get information, they try to ask about why this is so from the facility, they'd be turned away. So that highlights really the lack of transparency and the lack of access to information by these communities. And also, I want to note that especially in Southeast Asia, you would typically have less stringent or less, let's say, advanced regulations or technologies around to monitor the air. So you have questions over, so usually what may happen is a proposal goes through and the proponents will say this is clean, it won't emit a lot of air emissions. But what happens is there's no actual data that you can use to back this up. So even if a facility may be operating, if there's a lack of information to say the Air Pollution Act is actually bad, then you don't really have much to work with. The next one is in Davao, which is an ongoing proposal, I believe, for about 10 years now at this point. And what's interesting is this was initially a JICA-funded effort, but after community responses, very coordinated community responses over the years with CSOs like IDIS and also No Burn in Davao, JICA eventually said, no, we're not funding this. We've never been connected with this facility. So this creates a conflicts because JICA is saying they're not funding it, but the local government and many different officials are actually saying, oh, this is actually JICA funded. So you have, I think, over there a clear example of a community win, where community spoke up, and then the financial institution backed down. Now, one of the things here that community was saying is, aside from health impacts, impacts on the environment, and impacts on their incomes, you also impact existing solutions that are already happening on the ground to waste and to climate change. And I'll go over those a little bit. Those are called zero waste initiatives. And basically, this is an example in Davao called the Limadol Zero Waste Initiative, where it focuses on addressing waste through upcycling of waste. They're using what you call black soldier flies in order to promote composting, using natural fertilizer, and I'd like everyone to remember there was an earlier slide there that mentioned in Southeast Asia, 50 to 70% of waste is organic. So there's a lot of potential in efforts like these. You also have this where they're using Limadol, the black soldier fly larvae for animal protein. Also in Davao, highlighting the economic benefits and the justice benefits as it pertains to waste pickers and waste workers. You would see over here that through zero waste initiatives like this, you reduce waste, you're able to divert waste which otherwise would have gone to landfills, and you also create economic benefits that go directly to the communities. There are other examples over there which you may view. You can just Google them, take a screenshot if you will. Now, last few slides over here, I'd just like to end by inviting everyone to the Day of Action Against Incineration, which is happening on June 3. And this is a coordinated day of action among CSOs, communities, and different groups in order to demonstrate opposition to WTE and other false solutions to waste and climate change. For this year, we're really trying to retake the narrative. This is happening alongside the ADB's Asia Clean Energy Forum happening on that same week. And we'd like to have different initiatives in order to how do you say this? In order to debunk these false solutions and to show what the real solutions are through coordinated community-led actions with communities, with different climate and human rights groups. The previous speaker mentioned the ESF, the ongoing safeguards policy review of the ADB, where GAIA and other groups are engaging. There's that little screenshot of the news over there on the right. We're also holding different media advocacies and different avenues for storytelling. These are examples from outputs last year called Burnt, where we highlighted voices from the ground. And in the coming few days, we're also going to be on the Earth Matters podcast to talk about waste incineration and also to invite people again to join the Day of Action. Now, this is a little quote I'd like to highlight from, again, from the Energy Finance Tracker report. This is from GAIA's Deputy Director, which I think really summarizes the call to action against WTE and other false solutions. Please do look at it over there in the report. And thanks very much. Again, I'm Brex Arevallo. This is my email over here. And please do join us or follow us on Instagram through Zero Waste Asia. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Brex. I think some of our participants have questions already, but please hold that for a moment as we will call on our last speaker. So last but not the least, our last speaker will talk about some controversial energy projects in the Philippines and the challenges faced by environmental defenders and climate activists. Our last speaker is a full-time youth climate justice activist based in Manila, Philippines. She is the convener and international spokesperson of the Youth Advocates for Climate Action Philippines, or YACAP, the Fridays for Future FFF of the Philippines. She is also an organizer with FFF International and FFF MAPA, or Most Affected Peoples and Areas, making sure that voices from the global south are heard, amplified, and given space. She is a strong voice on anti-imperialism, anti-colonization, and the intersectionality of the climate crisis. She is committed to changing the system and building a world that prioritizes people and planet, not profit, through collective action. May we call on Mitzi Jonelle from the Youth Advocates for Climate Action Philippines, or YACAP. Take it away, Mitzi.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. And apologies for my current setup. I'm coming from a community visit, so and the traffic was a lot longer than I anticipated. Thank you for the introduction. I'm also here as People's Rising for Climate Justice, which is an alliance of grassroots groups fighting for 5 points of unity, which is anti-imperialism, climate justice, grassroots-led collective action, anti-militarization, and system change. Something that all three of our previous speakers talked heavily about really emphasizes the importance of a just transition when we talk about the energy transition. And often in climate action spaces and when talking to different policymakers, there's a heavy emphasis on investing into renewable energy, using technology, et cetera, but the justice aspect is always forgotten. And here I'm going to talk about the importance and why it's something that we cannot simply look over. For those of us who live in the Philippines and have, or around Asia, we've been experiencing some of the worst heat waves that we've had. And in the Philippines, this means that we faced potential disruption to electricity supplies as an intense heat wave fuels cooling demand, and it left a lot of our power systems overloaded. And this just shows that the current system of our energy distribution and our energy production isn't something that actually matches the needs of the Filipino people, especially because you simultaneously have energy prices and electricity prices soaring, especially with the oil price hikes and everything, making the people most marginalized and people already most impacted by the climate crisis as well, more vulnerable to the heat waves and to the droughts and the floods that we've been experiencing. But then at the same time, you also have a lot of Filipinos that don't actually have access to electricity. And while our country still heavily relies on fossil fuels, we are capable and already there are several studies that show that we can already start transitioning to 100% renewable energy because of the rich resources that the Philippines has. But that isn't the priority that our government is currently having. Instead, what they are doing is still continuing false initiatives like the liquid natural gas happening in the Verde Island Passage in Batangas. They're also still allowing large-scale coal-fired power plants to continue. And when environmental defenders and activists try to go up against this, they are matched with state violence. A very concrete example is Echo Dangla and Jocks Tiong of Pangasinan People Strike for the Environment, who were abducted by the military just a few months ago because they've been active campaigners against one of the largest coal-fired power plants here in the Philippines. And they're not the only ones who face this. When we're talking about climate activists and environmental defenders, the Philippines is one of the most dangerous countries in the world for environmental defenders. Another very concrete example is how a lot of our indigenous peoples are often militarized and threatened and harassed, and they're often going against mining corporations, which is a portion of those mining corporations, which are mostly global and multinational corporations, are either mining minerals for renewable energy, so transition minerals, or coal, or they're going up against hydro dams. So again, you see the juxtaposition of how you have a world that says that we need to go into renewable energy and that we're doing this in a just way, but where do the minerals from the renewable energy technology come from? It comes from our countries, it comes from our land, and the way that it's being taken is through multinational companies that's displacing and militarizing indigenous communities. And again, you see what happens when the state of the world's energy and the state of the world's finances are dictated by people who aren't actually from the grassroots, but people from a very elite ruling class. And so with all of this, you see that, you know, there are some investments that go into renewable energy here in the Philippines, but it's development, but for whom? You find that there are solar farms that are land grabbing from small farmers. There are, again, hydro dams that are endangering indigenous communities. And so it's not even about just the renewable energy, but ensuring that the global north countries who are historically responsible for the climate crisis really pay reparations for renewable energy, national industrialization. A lot of the privatized and liberalized way that energy and electricity is handled here in the Philippines means that a lot of people from the marginalized areas don't actually have access to it. And so this is why we really call for a people-oriented just transition. And one of that includes a decentralized production and centralized distribution of energy to really ensure that people have access and agency over their electricity. But that also means that we need a government that actually represents the people from the grassroots, a government that actually prioritizes the needs of the people and not the wants of the elite few, and it actually prioritizes people and planet over profit. And it's a long way to go. A lot of times I've been asked in these spaces, what do we actually need to do, like step by step? And the thing is, the first thing that we need to do is actually go up against these large-scale multinational corporations that are owning and privatizing and monopolizing our electricity, going against these dams and hydro dams that are endangering our indigenous communities. These are ensuring that the mining processes and the mining bills that we have here in the Philippines aren't it doesn't continuously allow 100% of foreign ownership. We now also have in the Philippines our president, who is the son of a dictator from 50 years ago, is trying to change our constitution. So within the charter change, there's a possibility to, again, ramp up the 100% foreign ownership of mining corporations, which is already essentially happening now, but also 100% foreign ownership of renewable energy systems and other technology systems. And there you will see that maybe we have a less warm world in terms of degrees. Maybe we in this system, if this continues, maybe we're no longer dependent on fossil fuels, but the people who are still most impacted by the climate crisis will be impacted by different forms of crises and injustices as well. And the biodiversity crisis that comes along with with the profit-oriented crisis of how energy is produced and how resources are extracted from the earth will still have a great impact on people in the most marginalized areas, on Filipinos, on Southeast Asians, who aren't the ones who are mostly responsible for the climate crisis. And so it really is a global fight to ensure that one, we have the reparations from the global north to the global south. This June, we are seeing that the G7 is coming up, and again, global north countries, the richest in the world, are going to be coming together to supposedly address all the problems and issues that the world is having, and yet they take this opportunity to not really finance climate action or climate justice, or even other social justice needs like health or education, etc. But really a lot of the money is going into war. So that's something that I also invite everyone to investigate, how it's so important that we have this tracker now that shows where the money is going into energy. And it is wild to see that tracker right next to the tracker of how much money goes into militarization, and how global north countries are spending so much money into wars and weapons. And what are these militaries trying to gain? They're trying to gain resources. They're trying to get oil, they're trying to get mines, they're trying to get minerals, all for energy, because energy is how the capitalist and imperialist system is determining its continuance. It's how it's extracting its profit. And so really the way to go up against this system, go up against this injustice, is to gain back and claim back our energy, to claim back our agency over our own land and our own people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mitzi. Take care. And we hope you can still join us until the end of the webinar. So we will now head to the last question and answer segment. I know some of you have questions, I think. Again, please raise your hand to be recognized. And for those who cannot open their mic, you can put your questions in the chat box. So yeah, we still have, okay. We have a question from Ale for Brex. What are the main private companies involved in the development of WTE infrastructure in Southeast Asia? Are they large energy holdings or smaller enterprises?
Hi, Ale. So thanks for the question. There are a couple that come to mind. The first is there's China Everbright, large corporation, and interestingly, with a history of corruption scandals. You have a bunch of its leaders that have been found to are implicated in cases like fraud and so on. The other one, at least in the Philippines, the other one that we're seeing is Procter & Gamble, which is also promoting false technologies like chemical recycling and plastic recycling. I could look into the other smaller enterprises and the other corporations a little bit later and get back to you.
Thank you, Brex. Is there any question from our participants, from our audience? Oh, okay. Japanese companies. Questions? So for those also watching us via Facebook live stream, you can leave your question in the comment section, and we will be able to read that so that our speakers can respond to that question. Is there any question from the participants? Oh, okay. I think they are satisfied with the discussion provided by Brex and Mitzi. Of course, if you have questions, anytime you can reach out to any of our resource speakers and to me. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone who stay up. I think we are almost done with our webinar. If you still have questions, please do approach any of the resource speaker, the organizers of this webinar. And you can email me and I can facilitate continuing discussion through online. So yeah, I can share my email address so everyone can approach this. Yeah. And please to our co-organizers, if you can also share your email addresses, contact information, so that the participants are able to reach out to you for follow-through conversation after this webinar. Of course, we are looking forward to replicate a similar discussion at the country level or local level. Just reach out to us. We'll be happy to speak and share our tools, our information, because sharing is caring. So yeah, I think we are at the tail end of our discussion. So to synthesize the conversation that we just had and to share her reflections as an Indigenous woman rights defender, may we call on the coordinator of the Human Rights and Policy Advocacy Program of the Asia Indigenous Peoples PAC or AIPP, Guangchun Gangmei Guangchun.
Thank you so much, dear Carlos, and also congratulations to the team of International Accountability Project for the launch of this very important, as I see it. And also, I was just thinking that, I mean, we have this network of Indigenous peoples' human rights defenders, so it would be very important for them also in learning how to track this financing of energy projects. And thank you so much to the speakers. I think I've learned a lot. I'm also just getting my interest in understanding the just energy transition and the greening economy. So it was very helpful for me to also understand from the speakers as well. And also while I was reading your report and also exploring my interest and reading some of the articles, I realized that nearly 70% of the transition mineral projects are also located in Indigenous peoples' land and territories. And a lot of the people who are talking about this energy projects and greening economy and transition economy, as rightly pointed out by most of the speakers, is also that it is not always just, no? And oftentimes it also follows the earlier problematic extractivist approach and logic of the fossil fuel extraction, which is very concerning as well. And often, as Mitzi and others are mentioning, that it's entirely undermine the rights of the local communities, the host communities, and they are not equally treated as partners in in most of these projects. So so it was very interesting for me when Ali was presenting how we can use this energy tracker and those points where there was a quick facts and the actors and trends of finance, energy financing, and also this also while we are transitioning, we also see that there's a continuation of the fossil fuel extraction as well, and the use of fossil fuel, and some of the problematics of this large scale renewable and infrastructure energy, as pointed out by some of the speakers. And although there's some decline in fossil fuel, and there's this data which shows that there is some decline of the multilateral development banks on fossil fuel, but the transition energy that they are focusing is also on gas, which is also some problematic. The problematic aspects and the data and examples is pointed out by the speakers, which was very important and also very to understand for all of us, no? And also, I mean, the false solutions, which was Brex was presenting on this, and how this is also enabled by the energy finance, no? And how, but also pointing out the problematics or how this is, these are falsely branded as as clean, clear energy projects. So which I thought was very interesting that the speakers have pointed out, and Mitzi brought out the impacts on defenders and the campaigns that they are doing and raising their funds, and how also how these actions by the defenders are met by a lot of violence and criminalization and attacks on defenders that are happening. But the importance of continuing this struggle, the importance of continuing this to stand up against the corporates in that sense is also very important to understand. And as I'm trying to synthesize this, I think it's also important that the initiatives, the projects that towards transition is important, as the speakers are saying, is that it is important to do it in a very mutually effective and equal partnership. But also it's very important, as I see that indigenous peoples are pointing out always, is the importance of the free, prior, and informed consent of the host communities, that you do it as an equal partnership and with equal entitlement to the sustainable benefit of these projects as well, you know. And also the speakers were pointing out on this the global north, the problematic of the need of the global north, and how we can curb this demand on the transition minerals, but also how this should also be reflected in standard setting, in policy making, and also in investment decisions that we do, and operationalizing these approaches and standards is very important, no? So yeah, with that, I would like to thank you, Carlo, for inviting me to synthesize this, and I hope I've done a bit of justice to the important discussion that the speakers have brought forward to this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Guang Chun. Thank you for that wonderful synthesis and powerful reflections coming from, an indigenous women rights defender. Thank you very much for allowing us to share your reflections and your perspectives on the issues at hand. So now we are at the end of our webinar. Again, I would like to thank the organizers of this event, the International Accountability Project, the Coalition for Human Rights in Development, the Global Alliance on Incinerator Alternatives, Asia Pacific, and the Youth Advocates for Climate Action Philippines. Thank you to all our speakers, Ale, Andri, Brex, Mitzi, and Guang Chun, to all the participants in our Zoom and Facebook live stream. It is my pleasure to facilitate this meaningful and very relevant discussion. And I hope that we continue to unite, to fight, to achieve our common goal. May we also continue to persist and resist for climate justice and our struggle for a better and humane world. So I would like to ask everyone to open your camera. And for a very short group photo. For those who do not want to show their faces and just their placards, it's totally fine. So yeah, can we do it for like maybe 10 seconds or 20 seconds? Yeah. Oops. Yeah. So we will have our friends to have a screenshot of our meeting. Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3. One more because we have a lot in this room. Okay. Thank you. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you everyone. Kapun Kap, terima kasih, akun Charan-Charan. Maraming salamat po. And see you online and offline. Bye everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Carlo.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for coming.
you.
All,
Thank you,
thank
thank
you
you.
all. Thanks.
Thank you for this very wonderful discussion.
Thank
Philippines.
you. Thank you everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Brex. Thank you,
All
Gaia
right.
team.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Carlo. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Carlo.
everyone. Thank you, Badon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. It's a very nice.
Thank you very much.